Hello, I'm Jill. Welcome back. I hope that you will like and subscribe to my channel. We do a lot of true crime. I will do some story times soon coming up of my own struggles that I've gone through and am currently going through. I really am so thankful to everybody that has subscribed. I never thought that anybody would even care what I think or want to listen to me, but I am so thankful. I mean, the comments are great. You guys are so smart and intuitive with your comments and your thinking. I read them. I read them all. I may not respond all the time, but I do respond when I can. I'm really thankful. You guys, you make me think, which is what I love. I'm one of these people that I like to think about things. I like to hear your thoughts and your opinions. We can agree, we can disagree, but you know what? I'm always thinking. You always keep me on my toes, and I'm like, what if? So I'm always going back and reanalyzing things. I'm always doing it. And I see that you're making other people think as well. And that's a beautiful thing. Today, I want to do something on the story I'm sure we've all heard about ad nauseum, but I want to do it because I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I want to do something on Chris Watts, but I want to do something on Chris Watts' mother, Cindy Watts, and then I want to do something on the infamous Nichol Kessinger, because I feel like Chris Watts and Nichol Kessinger are really kind of like puppeteers behind the scenes of this whole case. So Cindy Watts put out a book, and I will link the book below. But I want to first start off with Chris Watts and his demeanor and the way that he kind of confesses and what comes after that. So just stick with me a little bit. I promise I'm going to kind of link them all together, but we're going to get into it now, okay? Recap, and just in case you haven't heard of this man, he is the Colorado husband that murdered his pregnant wife, Shanann Watts, then killed his two young daughters, Bella and Celeste. He then loaded his pregnant wife into his truck, drove them to a work site, dumped her in a shallow grave, then strangled both of his young daughters, stuffed them into an oil tank. He would then eventually confess to police that he had done this. He did confess 7 days after he had murdered his children and wife. It was very strange because everybody, he went on TV begging that he wanted his family back. He went on TV just saying, I want my family back. Where are they? He went throughout the home with police officers looking for his family. He would find her wedding ring, her cell phone. She also had lupus. He would find her medications. He would go on, with this little act of where I don't know where they're at. We were caught in a fight. She must have gone to a friend's. However, her friend, being the best friend in the whole world, came out and said, this is not like Shanann. I dropped her off from a work trip the night before she went into the house. She had an appointment to go have an ultrasound. She then missed that appointment. This is not okay. So they end up bringing Chris Watts in. They end up interrogating him very well, may I add. They actually fed him a reason so that he could then go ahead and confess. They said, Chris, did your wife do something to these kids? Did she hurt them? And then you have to hurt her. Well, that was his green light right there. He said, can you bring in my father? He confesses to his father. He said, I walked in on Shanann, strangling one of the children, and then I had to strangle her. That's what he said. So in his mind, in his little alibi theory, whatever you call it, she had already strangled the children, so then he strangled her. And then I guess in his rage, he buries his pregnant wife in a shallow grave, stuffs his children down into two different oil depository, those oil rig things, whatever. It's all disgusting. So at the sentencing, so he says, I trusted you to protect my daughter, my granddaughters, and my grandson, not to kill them. Ugh, man. The mom, Shanann's mom, says that she forgives Chris Watts. I don't think she forgives Chris Watts. I think that this mother has just gone down into a place and she doesn't know what to think or do or who to blame. And she's just in a place of just being lost. And I feel some of her pain because I know that place. But beyond my daughter being gone, beyond that of my grandchildren being brutally murdered, I cannot fault her for one word that she says. If she has forgiven him and she has peace, any peace within any of her days here, I pray that she does. I pray that she has an ounce of peace in any of her days. I pray for the whole family. Now I want to get into Cindy Watts, into her book. I don't own her book. I don't really want to own her book. I want it in my house. I'm already having trouble filming this video. I've had to refilm this video. We're going on about 5 times now because it keeps glitching out. It doesn't want to record. It doesn't want to save my videos. My computer keeps going out. Weird crap, some shadows over here. I don't know. All I know is that when I have watched hours of video on this, hours, I've watched the whole 3-hour Nichol Kessinger, I don't even call it an interrogation. I call it conversation with friend. I've watched that, and what I've watched from other YouTubers, they say that their stuff messes up. I believe them now. I believe them now because I'm getting really frustrated because I'm trying to do this because I'm trying to make a point here. There is a method to this madness of wanting to do this. So I'm going to try and get through it. On with Cindy Watts' book. This lady babies Chris Watts. I don't know if he's the baby of the family. I'm betting he may be, or me may be the only boy. I'm not really sure. However, she says she can't make this better for him. The mom writes the book where she victim blames Nichol. And I said it again on the last video that I didn't record. I said Nichol. She doesn't victim blame Nichol. She victim blames Shanann. She says Shanann is very, she is materialistic. She is very bossy. She bossed her son all the time, poor Chris Watts, that he bought her a $12,000 engagement ring. He bought it, lady. He bought it. He chose her. He married her, okay? And when they got married, Chris Watts ate him some hamburgers, some candy bars. He dressed not great. Well, I think Cindy Watts thought that, Shanann changed all that about him. But if you look, Shanann didn't change that about him. That started to change when he looked like he was getting into maybe some religion. Okay, so she also says in the book that she wasn't out in front of the press. She wasn't out in front of the press crying for Shanann because she wasn't crying for Shanann and she didn't want to be a hypocrite. I'm starting to see maybe where her son gets some of his behaviors from. The apple may not fall that far from the tree. She says that that Shanann would share with her things about her illness of And she would also share with her things about her previous marriage, because Shanann had been married a previous time. And this would make her very uncomfortable. The way I see it is, Shanann may have been trying to have a bond with her mother-in-law, saying, I have lupus. This is my disease. And these are some things about my disease that I have. Because maybe she wanted her mother-in-law to take an interest in her struggles and the things that she had been through. But all Cindy Watts saw was someone telling her things she didn't want to hear about, because she didn't really take an interest in Shanann anyway. Another thing that struck me was they were all on vacation. I guess they had rented maybe a big Airbnb. And I guess Chris did have a brother or sister, because he had a nephew there. And it was said that the nephew would run down every morning, get up probably bright and early, the crack of dawn, run down and bang, bang, bang on Chris and Shanann's door every morning. Well, Shanann had it at some point because she wanted to sleep in. And she told Chris, hey, can you go tell them to have him stop banging on our door every single morning for us to get up? I guess, she was wanting to sleep in a little bit. So Chris, being not going to the source, which would have been the child's parents, meaning his brother or sister's son, he goes to who other than his mother, Cindy Watts, to tell her to go tell the guardian of the child, the niece or nephew, which would be his brother or sister, to tell the little boy to stop. Okay, so Nichol Kessinger is in with the police. And she says at first that she did not know he was married. Well, we know that's trash, because there is an email through the company email to Chris saying to him that she was looking for to have a family, something like he had. So she knew he was married. She knew he had a family. She probably researched all of it. And then she said to him, maybe we should just be friends. Now, I think this is her bait for him. This is when she starts. She has set her sights on him. She said that she worked in the office of where he worked. And that every morning around 7, the men would all come in there and they would meet in those offices, I guess before they would go out in the field. And that's when she noticed him, or they noticed each other. And they would begin talking. I don't know if it's by the cooler or by the coffee, but they would begin talking. So somehow she managed to look at him, get him to look at her. She was a pretty girl. She took care of her body, got his attention. And I guess, through the company email, they start emailing back and forth. So there's proof of that. And he doesn't say anything back, which he said, we should just be friends. He never returns the email, because I don't think Chris has a lot of game, to be quite honest with you. But I don't think he knew who he was dealing with. I think Nichol does have game. So she said they just kept talking, but he would compliment her and say, oh, but you're so pretty, and then she said that she would, to keep texting him, and apparently it got physical at some point, because she would be texting her friend and how good Chris was in the bedroom, and then she would start to be getting jealous of the time he would spend with his family, because they found a text where she's texted her friend, and it said, I guess it's a good thing that he takes care of his kids, I guess. So right then and there, you could say, well, it looks like she's kind of getting jealous that he has the family, he takes care of his kids, he takes care of his wife. She's the other woman. She's the other woman, but she doesn't want to be the other woman. She wants to be different from Shanann. So at some point, she gets on Shanann's Facebook, and she starts looking up Shanann's Facebook. and looking up all the family photos, looking up what kind of person Shanann is, digging into all of her things. So Nichol researches Shanann. So Nichol is becoming everything Shanann is not. Nichol is adventurous. Nichol would be careful. Shanann called Chris Chris. So Nichol called Chris Christopher. She wants to stand out. She wants to be different. This is how she's luring him in. Now remember, when she met him, he was kind of squirrely looking. Nichol is into fitness. She's into, this little surfing. What is it? That sand surfing or dune surfing that they did. She's like active and young and hip and into diet and showing him about his macros and all this stuff, that's new to Chris. For weird tangents, she says that Chris had come over with 2 boxes of condoms to her apartment. And she goes on about the dates of these condoms and how one box was already open, and she looked at the date and it was from a 2017, I can't remember. And the other box was unopened, and she's like, why is this box open? And he said, oh, it was from a time when me and my wife were intimate. We weren't wanting to have a baby, and I guess Shanann wasn't on any birth control. And it kind of struck me as odd. I was like, why is she telling us about these condoms? Is she not on birth control? Like, why are you putting that in there? First of all, I'm thinking, okay, why are you inserting birth control into this? Then she tells us that a guy named Jim has been staying at her house. Jim is an old family friend. He's friends with her dad. Jim has a key to her apartment. And Jim has been there for the last few days, letting himself in and out of her apartment, which strikes me again as odd. I'm thinking, well, Chris doesn't care that Jim's just in and out of your apartment? I mean, y'all are in a relationship. That seems a little odd to me. Why does he have a key to your apartment? And then they ask, can we contact Jim? Basically, and remember, the police officer is very nice. Like, he doesn't blame her for anything. Oh, well, he's like, well, if we needed to call him to ask him, were you at home? Could we call him? And she's like, please don't call Jim. He's so sweet. I don't want him involved in this in any way, shape, or form. Please don't bug Jim. He'll freak out. He'll freak out. Please don't call Jim. And he's like, well, I mean, we don't want to have to call Jim, but, if we can't, validate that you're there, we may have to call him. And she's like, please don't involve him. Just please. I don't know if they did or not. I'm thinking no, because Chris Watts admitted to the murders. So they probably never did follow up with Jim, but it's going to come out that it's strange about Jim. So let's go to the night or the day Chris Watts comes home and his family is not there. He calls Nichol Kessinger. Okay. They talk on the phone for a very long time. He tells her his family is missing. She says automatically, she's like, well, she probably went to a friend's house. Did y'all get in an argument? And he says, yes, we got in a fight. And she's like, well, she's probably at a friend's house. Did you call the friend? And why'd you call the friend's house? And then he's like, well, her friend called the police. And according to her, she's like, the police? Why'd they call the police? She goes to, well, did you check the bank accounts? Is there any money missing? And then he says, well, her wedding ring here. Her wedding ring is here. And she goes, and he's like, what should I do with it? Well, he bought the wedding ring. He knows about the wedding ring. She's like, well, why don't you just go pawn it? He's like, well, it's a nice rock, and he decides not to pawn it. Then he tells her, well, the media's here. Should I talk to the media? And I'm like, why are you asking this lady if you should talk to the media about your beautiful daughters and pregnant wife that are missing? Again, you're depending on a woman to make your decisions. Why are you depending on this woman to make your decisions? What the hell does she know? Why are you asking her? So they talk that day, I believe, for 2 hours on the phone. Now, here's where it gets weird. The neighbor, remember, he has that video cam footage of Chris Watts backing his truck in, loading something in, and leaving, okay? This happened at 5:17 a.m. He catches Chris Watts backing his truck in, loading something in. At 6:16 a.m., Nichol Kessinger's phone pings over nearby Chris Watts' home. It pings because Nichol Kessinger made a 1-minute phone call to Jim. Okay, so I want to talk about the most recently released, I can't call it an interrogation, lunch with friends with that Kevin Kobach asking her questions. And I want to first ask you guys, why in the world was her father in that meeting? Why is her dad in there? Immediately I'm thinking, like, is he an attorney? Well, I looked that up. He's not an attorney. He's just your dad. And on the occasion you hear him go, leading, don't ask that question. And they're on a first name basis with Kevin. And according to Kevin, Nichol, she'd be very giggly with him and he's laughing with her. And none of this is funny, people. Not 1 ounce of it is funny. She's like, and he's like, and and the dad's like, Kevin, that's leading. Don't go there. Don't ask her that. And it was said that Nichol became so enamored with Kevin that she would be texting him all night saying, oh, I forgot to tell you this. I forgot. I just remembered this. All hours of the night, that eventually Kevin would be sent elsewhere. Okay? So Nichol kind of struck me as a type of person that she saw something, she wanted it, and she went after it. Full on went after it. Not to mention, she's a liar. She lied there because things were leaked. Text messages, phone records, phones pinged, emails were leaked, saying just the opposite of some of the things that she said within this 3-hour interrogation. So I'm going to tell you some things that I noticed in the interrogation when I watched it. Maybe you guys noticed something different. Maybe we can discuss it. But I'm going to go ahead and get onto it. It was a hot mess. This girl broke down one time. And to me, she went from laughing, giggling, happy, flirting, to one time breaking down about how could he do that to the kids, and then right back at it, right back at her little flirting game. And even the officer was laughing. It was bizarre. It was very bizarre to me. And the whole time he's like, oh, we're not even, I know I'm asking you this, but you're not in trouble. It's okay. So from the get-go, she wasn't seen as a suspect or even a person of interest. And I'll tell you why I believe that at the end. But let's go and get into kind of how it went, okay? So the police bring her in, and her father's sitting there. And this girl can gab. I mean, she goes on and on and on to where the point, I think she's feeling good. Like, I think maybe she has done a little smoking or taken a little something, because she looks a little out of it, kind of. And she is just going on and drinking her water and, answering these questions. And as she's answering them, she's going off into these tangents. Like, I wanted him to bring the girls around because I wanted to show the girls my plants. I wanted to show them how plants grew. I love plants. I just love, and that's how it's going. And I'm like, wait, have I turned on to something different? Like, what is going on here? It's crazy. Let me just get into it with you. Okay, so on the neighbors camera, his security camera, as you see that truck there, you see a set of headlights of another vehicle passing by very slowly. I'm wondering if that is Nichol Kessinger's vehicle. Now, because Chris Watts did confess to killing his entire family, putting them in the oil drums, burying his pregnant wife in a field in a shallow grave, that's the end. That's the end of their investigation. So she's never been really investigated. In fact, all they did was make excuses for her in that police interview. They made excuses for her deleting messages, saying that, oh yeah, you thought he was a jerk, so you just deleted him. They never interviewed the man staying at her house. As a matter of fact, when her cell phone pinged at 6:16 near Chris Watts' house, it pinged because she made a 1-minute phone call to her friend Jim, who had been staying with her for those 3 days, like I told you. I'm going to tell you, I think that Nichol Kessinger didn't want Shanann in the picture anymore. And she kind of said, look, like she said in the interview, the only mistake I made was that I dated him and he was still married. Not only was he married, but he was expecting a boy. And Nichol Kessinger said she wanted to have his first boy. So they needed Shanann out of the picture. I think Shanann probably helped Chris Watts load up the body into his truck. I don't think that they meant that Chris Watts was going to kill his children, but I think probably one of the kids walked in and saw what he was doing to their mother, and in his mind left no other choice. So I think he did strangle them, as he said he did. Now I'm thinking of what possibly could someone do to make me basically fall on the knife for them and say that they never named them as a person that helped me. I think sitting behind bars has made him really think a lot. I do think that Cindy and Nichol talk just based on the fact of comparing her book to Nichole's words. They're pretty much the same. I think they probably knew each other. I think maybe they were introduced. I think that they both had in common the fact that they did not like Shanann. And I'm thinking, why would Chris Watts want to not name Nichol as helping him? Because clearly the first person he called was Nichol when crap hit the fan, basically. When they came looking for Shanann and those 2 kids, he called Nichol. What do I do? They want me to talk to the press. What do I do? And there she goes deleting messages. You don't delete messages if you have nothing to hide. You don't. I think, in my opinion, I think that he basically made a plea deal. I'm going to plead guilty, leave her alone. Why would he do that? I don't know, other than the fact that he is protecting her. For some reason, he's protecting her. He knows he's never going to get out. I don't feel he's never going to get out. He thought he wasn't going to get the death penalty. I don't even know why he thought that. But he's come forward recently saying that he wants a new trial, something to that effect. Well, you have to know something to get that. So he must be hiding something.